they say like, oh, introduction is easy. You say your name, maybe what's your favorite, like what you like to do, what's your hobby. If you don't even know that, you can tell me what's your favorite color. It's easy.
I'll give you a guess. It's a country whose number one export is nuclear tests. The national pastime of the people is to be oppressed.
Corea del Norte es inimaginable. Es muy difícil para mí cuando la gente me pregunta ¿qué se siente al vivir ahí? Siendo honesta, les digo, no podrían siquiera imaginarlo.
Ni siquiera imaginar que no podemos imaginar algo.
No hay palabras en ningún idioma que lo pueda describir, pues es un planeta totalmente diferente.
The government telling us what to wear, what kind of haircut you can have, what kind of makeup you can have, what kind of pants you can wear, what kind of song you can sing, what kind of movie you can watch, what kind of dance you can dance. Every little thing is determined by the regime.
Pero no te ordenan a gritos con una pistola en la cabeza. Es una coerción social pretendiendo hacerlo por el bien común. Y este gordo no trae una banderita porque él es...
I am Kim Jong-un and I'm not here to amuse ya. No, not Kim Jong-il. Sorry for the confusion.
Él es su papi, fue promovido a secretario general eterno por el gran logro de haberse muerto en 2011. Necrocracia mata plutocracia, supongo.
According to his official biography, he never pooped or peed. In reality, Kim Jong-il lived the life of the rich and famous, while hundreds of thousands of his people died of
Y su
famine.
pobrecito abuelo que nunca pudo tener la estatua gigante de oro que necesitaba para compensar por sus diminutas microempresas. Mao lo regañó porque no se supone que los comunistas sean ostentosos y se tuvo que conformar con bronce.
Kim Il-sung, when he was born, that's when North Korean calendar starts. We have a different time. That is, our time begins differently. And we have a saying, we are not Asians. We are not like some East Asian. We are Kim Il-sung people. We are Kim Il-sung race.
Al crecer en Corea del Norte, realmente creíamos que nuestro querido líder es un Dios todopoderoso, que hasta podía leer mis pensamientos.
It was like literally they just like copy the Bible, put their names, and made us like read and learn Bible in school, and become just like complete like brainwashed.
Tenía miedo hasta de pensar en Corea del Norte.
So they put Kim Il-sung as the God who loved us, who was chosen by this universe, and loves us so much. He gave us his son Kim Jong-il, which is Jesus. And their body dies like Jesus, but their spirit is with us forever. And when we die, we become with them, and we go like eternal paradise with them. So that's why they can like brainwash us.
And I'm the leader, the great successor. Who'd have known? Man, I should have known.
Cuando escapé a Corea del Sur, la gente me dijo que de hecho, era un dictador, que tenía los autos, muchas casas, y que llevaba una vida extremadamente lujosa.
Lived the life of the rich and famous, while hundreds of thousands of his people.
Nos morimos de hambre. Y el hambre conlleva a la muerte en Corea del Norte.
And North Korea was accused of having one of the worst human rights records in the world.
Work, sleep, then work, torture.
According to official biographies, he could walk at just 3 weeks old and talk at 8. And that's not all. As a college student, he wrote 1,500 books in 3 years and composed 6 operas that are apparently, quote, better than any in the history of music.
I'm like the Beatles, I make the people cry and scream. See what I mean?
Y nos decían que se moría de hambre por nosotros y que trabajaba hasta el cansancio por nosotros, y mi corazón tan solo se rompía por él.
¿Cómo te atreves, norcoreana malagradecida, siquiera sugerir que el gobierno fuera capaz de engañarnos?
North Korea has a wonder drug that makes people taller. North Korea has a cure for AIDS. North Korea discovered a unicorn layer. In 2012, Korean media reported that archaeologists had reconfirmed the existence of a unicorn layer where King Dongmyung, founder of the ancient Goguryeo kingdom, rode a unicorn.
Ah, ya ves.
Y recuerdo haber visto una foto de él, dándome cuenta por primera vez de que era la persona más robusta en la foto. Y me cayó el 20. Finalmente, me di cuenta de que no se estaba muriendo de hambre. Pero digo, nunca fui capaz de verlo antes, hasta que alguien me dijo, que está gordo. En serio, alguien tuvo que hacerme ver que está gordo.
There's nobody I can relate to. Feel like a bird in a cage. It's kinda silly, but not really.
En una montaña sagrada, vieron aparecer una estrella justo en el momento en el que nació Kim Jong-il. Todo el invierno se convirtió en primavera, y esos registros de que nació en algún lado de Siberia son fake news, son como los que dicen que Villa Pacífica, la que está justo al lado de la frontera de Corea del Sur, que es la frontera más violenta de todo el mundo, solamente fue construida para tratar de convencer a los sudcoreanos para que emigraran. ¿Tú crees? No, lo de querido líder, eso no es propaganda. Ellos no andan como aquí tratando de convencerte de estupideces como que puedas quedar embarazada cuando todavía no te has casado. Ellos, chécate, a pesar de que inventaron la hamburguesa, fueron capaces de prevenir los problemas de colesterol en la población simplemente informándoles de las propiedades nutritivas del aserrín.
A very kind of humorous and tongue-in-cheek approach as a way to get people interested in the subject. I think most people who are interested in liberty are interested in the subject. And once they start to realize what it's like that's going on over there, they start to wonder how it is they could have ever found any aspect of the situation humorous in the slightest.
Si no sabes que eres un esclavo, si no sabes que estás aislado o que estás siendo oprimido, ¿cómo luchas por liberarte? Yo ni siquiera entendía el concepto de escapar, pero podía ver las luces de China de noche. Y me preguntaba que si de ir a donde las luces, quizá pudiera encontrar un tazón de arroz.
The family is the basic unit of society in North Korea, so that when you are punished for a crime, they punish your entire family. In fact, they come for you in the middle of the night. 3 generations are taken to the camps, and you're never sure who it was that got your whole family sent there.
North Korean regime captured all my family, my nephews, my cousins, even my neighbors. Anyone knew me, put into propaganda video on YouTube, and they all got vanished because I spoke out after my escape. So you think like I'm free right now, but I'm not free. Defectors, after they escape, they are not still free. They're assassins of they actually regime. You know, like Kim Jong Nam got like poisoned. Kim Jong, the brother of Kim Jong in Malaysia, he poisoned his brother in where there's CCTVs. Of course, he doesn't care killing a defector. Who cares?
They're living in complete terror from morning to night, and at night you're waiting for the doorbell to ring, where anyone can do anything to you, where human life means nothing and you know it. And that's something else that I think most people in the West don't understand. North Koreans increasingly are aware of just how bad they have it. And in fact, the propaganda has changed. The propaganda used to be the whole world envies us. We have it so great.
Literalmente, pensaba que estaba en el centro del universo. Necesito que comprendan lo que significa la palabra escapar en el contexto de Corea del Norte. Por ejemplo, la palabra amor tiene un solo significado: amor por el querido líder. El concepto de amor romántico no existe en Corea del Norte.
There were even no words for depression. So, or even stress. The regime didn't put that words in the dictionary for us. So, imagine that in socialist paradise, how can you possibly stressed? How can you be possibly depressed?
Y esa es la parte de la coerción social de la cual les estaba hablando.
Y si no conoces la palabra, eso significa que no comprendes el concepto. Y por lo tanto, ni siquiera te das cuenta de que ese concepto es una posibilidad.
And in North Korea, like the regime told me my favorite color was red because that was revolutionary color. The regime told me my favorite country was North Korea, and in South Korea, suddenly they're asking me my name, and like, okay, I say my name, and they ask what's a hobby. Never heard like what hobby was in North Korea. No one can afford to have a hobby. So, being free wasn't like something easy at all. It was so painful. At some point, I thought, like, if someone not gonna care me and giving me enough food in North Korea, like just keep giving me like frozen potatoes and no one like hurt me, I actually would go back to a place where everything was decided for me.
Todos somos iguales y si te dejas llevar empáticamente por el camino de vida trazado por esa persona, lograrás entender.
Because, understanding freedom was a responsibility, was scary, right? If I choose to become, let's say, dancer, right? I have to be responsible for that choice for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And that was insanely scary idea. I had to choose.
Unbelievable what you just said.
Yeah, being free is not easy. You think it's easy, and it is not. I think that's why a lot of people actually asking for government to be choosing for you, because it is only a courageous person be free and onto their own like choice, and take that as like accountability. It is a very hard thing to do.
Nobody does authoritarianism quite like China.
North Korea only exists because of Chinese Communist Party. No country in the world can have a trade with North Korea because the dictatorship, it's been like banned by the UN resolution.
No le hagan caso a la norcoreana. YouTube ya nos hizo el favor de avisarnos de que China no controla las Naciones Unidas y no queremos ser baneados por andar cuestionando la autoridad suprema de la verdad.
There's almost a caste system in mainland China, so like a wait staff or someone that does manual labor does not inherently have the same value as any other person, right? They're at the bottom rung. Someone sweeping the street is at the bottom rung. Someone that is bringing you your tea or your meal is at the bottom rung, and they deserve to be treated that way.
Me suena.
By 2020, every citizen will have a social credit score that will go up and down based on their personal behavior.
The social credit system, we all know about that. The China's new digital overseeing God. So they're watching Chinese people's every single move. They will give you a score if you help an elderly across the street.
Oh.
That's considered a good deed for them.
Esos malditos.
Behavior leading to a deduction in credit will include jaywalking. Bad driving.
Los chinos.
Smoking on trains.
Dear passengers, people who travel without tickets or behave disorderly or smoke in public areas will be punished according to regulations, and the behavior will be recorded in the individual credit information system. To avoid any negative record of personal credit, please follow the relevant regulations.
Buying too many video games, buying too much junk food, buying too much alcohol, calling a friend who has a low credit score, merely having a friend online who has a low credit score, posting fake news online, criticizing the government, visiting unauthorized websites, walking a dog without a leash.
So what started to happen is that we see maids, hired workers, setting a house on fire and going inside to rescue the baby out so that they can increase their social credit score.
Me imagino.
And the entire system will be overseen by an estimated 400 million surveillance cameras with facial recognition software.
Cameras record them going through intersections, zero in on their face, and then publicly shame them on nearby video screens.
And it will eventually encompass real-time geolocation tracking of citizens via their cell phone.
So you walk into a restaurant after you've ordered your food, and a camera picks you up and you said, hey, David, welcome, here's your food. Right, so you're starting to get the feel of what a 5G world is. What is a 5G world? The platform is the network. So this is mobile computing paired with a pipe. 5G is computing and networking combined on the same platform. So this goes away.
Buena suerte con eso.
You walk outside your door and you say Uber. You don't get on your phone and say, I want an Uber. You just say Uber. Camera picks up your face or a microphone picks up you.
Come on.
That's what 5G is. That's what 5G is. And then the Uber shows up. There's a camera on the car that sees you, knows who you are, don't have to ask you your name. You get in and you go to wherever you want. You get out and you go do whatever you want. So in this world, in the 4G world, this is a platform. It's yours, right? You don't want to be part of that, all of that data. Remember we just talked about how do you influence society?
I saw Facebook interfering in elections in Mexico and Venezuela.
You don't want all that data to be out there about what you're doing. Just don't carry one of these, right? Just opt out. In a 5G world, you cannot opt out.
Overall credit scores can go up and down in real time based on a person's behavior, but it can also be affected by the people they associate with.
So if you were the one talking to the person that is the lowest rung or giving them more attention than they should have in China, then you yourself lose face as well.
Who owns the data? This, you could conceivably say, you lease the data on here you own. If you're getting Google services, you don't own that data. But in the 5G world, not only can you not opt out because it's built around the city, it's not in your phone anymore. Not only can you not opt out, you don't know who owns the data. Everything that you do can be watched. And for every person by 2022, there's going to be 2 people for every camera in China by 2022.
They have 1 billion right now on surveillance. Right. 1 billion cameras in China right now.
With artificial intelligence for facial recognition, right? And that's what 5G does. The connectivity explodes, right? So that allows you to put devices literally everywhere that can make your life more convenient or can track you.
In the words of the Chinese government, if trust is broken in one place, restrictions are imposed everywhere. They literally say that those deemed untrustworthy will be, quote, unable to move even a single step.
一个人如果信用不好，我们实现的一个目标就是让守信者通行天下，让失信者寸步难行。
When you ask Chinese people about social credit, most of them say it's great. Gee, I wonder why.
I think it's a good thing, this woman said. It makes people more honest.
我觉得这种东西应该更加多一点。
我倒觉得挺好的。
Yo creo que la moralidad no es algo que se deba de tratar de legislar, porque las intenciones no pueden ser comprobadas. Así que eso resultaría en un desperdicio extremo de recursos del sistema judicial. Además, la gente que estaría a cargo de ellos son los menos indicados para andar tratando de dictar los valores de una sociedad. Los ingenieros no saben nada de sociedades. Los políticos nomás saben cómo mentirle para sacarles lo que quieren. La iglesia es una institución corrupta. Los filósofos y los artistas se andan muriendo de hambre en algún rincón o drogándose tratando de sobrellevar la vida a la que los orillaron, así que no son buenos candidatos para dictar las reglas tampoco.
Could it be because under that very same social credit system, they will be punished for criticizing the social credit system?
Isn't Silicon Valley basically doing this anyway? They've started to kick people off. If people have the wrong political views here in the United States, of all places, they can get kicked off payment processors.
A lot of things, even pandemic, but the harm that they cause is not as little as the Chinese communist regime does to so many places in this world. There are Muslims and going into concentration camps right now.
Y le sacan los órganos para venderlos en el mercado negro.
No, you can't do
There's
e-commerce.
a massive the violation of privacy on Chinese people.
Y exportando.
Nope, we're not going to host your website.
Ah, sí me tocó.
They are the biggest black market for weapons to the Middle East. They sell missiles.
Nope, you can't have social media.
Cough, cough, Facebook cough.
They sell their people. They do human trafficking, the regime does. Do you know all this go to Africa? There are a lot of dictators. North Korea send their workers, slave workers, to build statues for African dictators.
Lo hacen carísimo y los cabrones no lo declaran Hacienda.
No, you can't use our email service.
Send them to Qatar, send them to Poland, a lot of European countries, send them to China, and the regime gets all the money.
Me suena.
No, you can't have a blog.
No.
And how they also in other regions, like women from Burma, in like Myanmar, other regions are sent to China to be married these farmers in China right now because of the one-child policy.
Un hijo, máximo dos, con procedimiento burocrático si es que el primero te sale niña. Lo hacen cumplir con esterilización, con abortos y consecuencias muy graves si es que te sales con la tuya.
It doesn't even have to be on-site behavior. No, you can't have a Twitter because you said something we don't like on YouTube. No, you can't have a Google account because you're too edgy. Your Facebook posts prove it.
Obviously, I never heard the word internet in North Korea. There is only one channel on TV, 24 hours, that is telling us how wonderful the socialist paradise is and how bad our American bastards enemies are.
Una parte esencial del comunismo es su característica utópica. Definen a la meta como la perfección y es por eso que cada vez que se ha intentado implementar el comunismo y sale de la fregada, no ha sido verdadero comunismo porque no salió perfecto. No tuvo nada que ver con los genocidios, con la política simplista, ególatra,
Is that not the
crédula.
same fucking shit? And the amount of power, the amount of centrality, by the way, in Silicon Valley is more than that of China.
Just imagine going to buy groceries with your credit card, and then because someone in an office somewhere in San Francisco deemed something you posted on the internet to be hateful, your transaction is declined.
Ya hay muchísimos casos por todo el mundo de esto e inevitablemente va a llegar aquí a menos de que se dignen en molestarse y se involucren en ello. El hecho de que sea una función física biológica involuntaria de la cual no tengamos el control ni la culpa no lo evitará. El hecho de que sea tan estúpido como el querer legislar en contra del hambre no evitará que la polaca panzona trate de imponer sus huevos por creer que los tiene tan grandes como su ego. Metafóricamente hablando, sigan con el culo de sacapuntas eléctrico y se los van.
This is how they try to make everybody as robot, as Stalin famously said. The engineering of the soul is way more important than the production of the tanks.
Joseph Stalin is what we would call the gold standard of dictatorship. Obviously, we're not talking about morality here.
Búscala en cualquier diccionario chino, ni como moralidad.
They're doing a social experiment here where they're kidnapping a young boy in public in mainland China. Yep, grab him, run away. What does the woman on the bench do? Not my problem. This is not staged, by the way. I know some people might think it's staged, but it's not.
There are very few people in his category. Hitler, Mao, and that's about it.
Forced labor camps, 600 of them, all over China. These people, they are not criminals. The people who are locked inside these camps are usually political or prisoners of conscience. They can be Christians, Falun Gong practitioners, Tibetans.
A los tibetanos porque China está emberrinchada con que quiere el Tíbet. Falun Gong es como los que tratan al yoga como una misa y el que la gente tenga religión le quita poder y control al Partido Comunista Chino, así que nanay. Y los cristianos por culeros.
And the government, they have an incentive to lock these people up because these forced labor camps often disguise themselves as factories to the outside world. If you're wearing a made in China shirt, chances are the raw material might be produced in these labor camps. These people are subject to routine torture. They work long hours in really inhumane conditions.
Pero si los que tuvieron que poner redes para malabaristas alrededor del edificio de la oficina para que los trabajadores huevones no se suicidaran y evadieran sus responsabilidades fueron los de Apple, una empresa de los putos gringos.
Thanks to market reforms,
only 1 in 10 are living in abject poverty. So no question that China's become more prosperous, correct?
But why were they in poverty in the first place? The Great Famine, the Great Leap Forward, all those things brought turmoil onto the Chinese population.
El gran salto adelante fue una ideota de un superpolítico comunista chino bien inteligentoso que decidió que la gente más productiva de la sociedad estaba haciendo demasiado dinero, así que... y le dio sus puestos a los pobres de los pobrecitos, y pobrecitos no supieron sembrar y pum, la gran hambruna china de 15 a 55 millones de chinos muertos de hambre. El rango de error es tan grande porque sabemos que China no se puede creer nada, pero pongámoslo así, si todos los muertos de hambre de México se mueren de hambre, no le llegamos.
Many of them died, and the Communist Party has killed 85 million Chinese citizens in peacetime. That's more than the two World War combined. And so to say that they liberated us from poverty, to say that someone has liberated you, someone has to capture you first.
Kim Jong-un, of course, wants to scare me. And I think that's why I do want to be free someday from this regime, from this dictator completely, so I can say whatever I want and no one dies in my family because of what I say.
Well, they did that first, and then they did the reverse. Now you're thanking them for what they have done?
So, I don't know. It was one of my biggest gripes was when I would try to bring up some of these issues or topics, like if you see something and then you talk about it with your Chinese friends and they just avoid it. They don't want to talk about it.
The way that they have been telling you what you cannot be since you were a kindergarten. The way they tell you that there's a perfect way, which is the ideal of communist.
Todo debe ser enseñado.
And you have to constantly strive to be that way, to earn your love, to be their model student, to be their model daughter, and to behave in a way that's so outwardly oriented. Now, we all know that
incluyendo la compasión. Si yo viera a alguien muriendo en la calle, ahora mismo, haría lo que fuera por salvar a esa persona. Pero cuando estaba en Corea del Norte, vi a gente moribunda y muerta en las calles. No sentí nada. No es porque sea una psicópata, sino porque nunca aprendí el concepto de la compasión.
It's really bizarre, and it's definitely this culture of like, if you're a stranger, you're not in my family and you're not my friend, or I don't need your connection, then you mean absolutely nothing, or dirt, right?
Yo solo sentí compasión, empatía y simpatía en mi corazón, hasta aprender la palabra compasión y el concepto, y ahora lo siento.
And like I said, I was a bit taken aback by the whole situation, but it's something that I would slowly realize is actually a very big part of mainland Chinese society, is this whole thing about not helping people in need.
Literally, our school curriculum is dedicated to learn about like the greatness of the dear leaders, like what kind of miracles our dear leader can do, and how bad the West, the democracy, the world was. And everything was brainwashing in school. Like even like learning math was like, there are 4 American bastards. You kill 2 of them. Then how many American bastards left to care?
No es mi traducción, así se expresan literalmente de los estadounidenses hasta en sus libros de texto. Por alguna extraña y desconocida razón, estos dos países están obsesionados con los sementales bien dotados de nuestros vecinos.
I don't remember who third place was. Second place was U.S. as the worst country to raise kids in. And first place was Mexico. And first place was Mexico.
¡Bravo! Me encanta oír de mi país de esta manera repentinamente cuando trato de escapar de mi situación personal inundándome de los problemas de los países que sí importan en el ámbito internacional. Primer lugar del peor en educación. Primer lugar del peor en salud. Primer lugar del peor en seguridad. Segundo lugar del peor en tiempo porque los gringos están más ocupados que nosotros. Y quinto lugar del peor en felicidad, que los lavados del cerebro tomará como un qué gente tan alegre somos en vez de la perspectiva más realista de nos encanta que nos la dejen ir.
I didn't go to school. I didn't learn about the revolution or democracy or none of that.
Me suena.
They think North Korean is like poor. That is why people are starving. North Korea is not a poor country.
Y México menos, en lo absoluto.
And the Kim Jong-un, the Kims, the dictators, on purpose not to feed us. Because imagine if you are fed, now you're going to start reading books. Now you're going to start thinking about the meaning of life. You're going to do art. You're going to do, you want to have your hobby. You want to think about more than surviving. So like if you keep feeding people, they are not going to be obeyed. You're not going to be able to control them. That is why the regime so cautious, calculating not to feed us. So all we can think is not about revolution, not about freedom, not about how people living. It's about surviving next meal. Can we like survive until like tomorrow?
So cheers to you, the engineer of soul, which is the writers and the artists. They use that also as a tool.
This is how you modernized a peasant country. You modernized the peasant country through coercion. You used the state to force everybody to do what the state needed them to do, and that's how you built an industrial power out of a peasant.
There is no way that I will want to return to the way of life that I had in China. No way.
Solo entonces se entendió